Hi, folks. It's Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night because you'd been gaslighted, pardon my language, and sort of mind fucked? I had that experience this morning where, you know, if that happens, it sort of wakes me up and gnaws at me, and then I, can process. So I was up, I was processing, and I had planned to do this video. So I'm gonna bring you this video called 10 Foundations for Building Healthier Relationships. My energy level is a little bit low. I'm sure I'll get passionate as I get into the material. But I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, and it's about 7:20, and I'm winding down. But okay, 10 foundations for building a healthier relationship. You notice I didn't say build a healthy relationship. If you grew up in a psychological war zone, if you were abandoned and abused and grew up with addicts and narcissists, you ain't going to be in a healthy relationship, folks. Don't bullshit yourself. You can be in a healthier relationship. You can be in a workable relationship. You can be in a fulfilling relationship. But if you were brought up in psychological Shawshank prison or Auschwitz or, psychological Hades, if you think you can grow up and have a healthy childhood, you're misinformed. Grow up and have a healthy relationship. Okay, healthier. Okay, number one, the first thing that's required to have a really vibrant relationship is to have some strong original chemistry. And some people's chemistry is stronger than others. Primitive people or needy people tend to have super strong enmeshment. They also fight like cats and dogs, are very reactive in therapy, torture each other psychologically, but they have really good connection and really hot sex. It's sort of a trade-off. Other people, instead of marrying their type, which is the hidden version of their parents' worst qualities, they marry their anti-type. They marry somebody who is the opposite of their parents. So it's long on safety and short on chemistry. But just about every couple I've ever worked with has had enough original chemistry to build a healthier relationship. Number two is that the couple needs to be ready for therapy. They need to be broken. They need to have their walls broken down. Let me get my little whiteboard out here. And I dropped my pen. Technical difficulties. I'm grabbing the pen with my toe. I can't pick it up with my toe. Okay, those of you, I'm still having trouble picking it up. Those of you who've worked with me have seen this drawing a million times. There was once a period of time the client said, just leave it up on the board, dog. You're going to be drawing it again anyway. So this represents a person's psychological defense mechanisms. I sort of made this up, but it's a good representative. And somebody comes in like this, I can't help them. Sigmund Freud couldn't help them. Jesus Christ couldn't help them. Tony Robbins couldn't help them. Nobody could help them. Because they're unreachable, they're unteachable, they're a mocker, they're arrogant, They know it all. Um, I had a couple come in the other day where there was a fellow like this, and they're quite a handful. And when he informed me he wasn't going to pursue further therapy, I mildly rejoiced because I knew it was going to be a losing battle. These little arrows I'm drawing represent pain that's coming out. So here's a couple comes in, or an individual, they're bleeding all over the carpet. They're not shattered. They're still functioning. They're not depressed. But they're driven by a sense of urgency that they're about ready to lose their marriage is usually the issue. So that's the second requirement, is humility and brokenness. The third requirement is people have to be terrifically motivated. They have to have some awareness, some crisp, fearless and searching moral inventory about the nature of their dysfunction, and it has to disturb them. Many times a counter-dependent, or sort of like a mini narcissist, comes in and they're the king of their castle, they're the center pole of their business, and I ask them, do you know how broken you are? And they go, no, I'm not broken. I just want to fix a marriage with my wife. And then I say, no, actually, you're extremely fucked up. And it's just quite a paradigm shift for them to get that. So they're not going to have motivation to work on themselves because they ain't broken. And I can do nothing with them. But when you see your dysfunction and you have genuine remorse, and you're tired of self-sabotaging your life and hurting the people around you, you show up not just to save your marriage. What's the old biblical saying? Lord, it's me standing in the need of prayer. It's actually a hymn. And if you have that attitude when you show up, you're not pointing the finger at the other person. You're there to work on yourself. Number 4, you need to be teachable. Whenever I hear the words, when I'm just explaining the concepts of recovery, and they say, well, I don't agree with you. I didn't even explain the damn concept yet, dude. How do you know if you don't agree with me? And I realize that they're not going to be teachable. You come to therapy looking for answers because what you're doing ain't working, and you realize that what you're doing isn't working. And you come with an open mind and you come with an open heart, and if you come to a therapist like me, I'll rock your world. I will teach you who you are, where you came from, what your family of origin is and why you married who you married. What's the truth about you? Effective therapy is about truth. So we do an assessment that includes 4 generations. In the Old Testament, on 2 occasions, it says, the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children and upon the children's children to the 3rd and 4th generation. We just get 4 generations on one piece of paper, and it don't take no brain surgeon. You just look at it, and the patterns of multi-generational dysfunction just sort of pop out at you. The 5th quality that you need to have is you have to have the strength and courage to feel emotional pain. Another thing I ask these counter-dependent mini narcissists is, do you realize that you have a wounded little boy at your core who's sad and abandoned? And they're like, huh? What? They have no clue. But it's true of all of us. We're just little kids walking around in grown-up bodies. And the price of fixing your marriage is digging up the core of you and healing that wounded inner child, going all the way back to your childhood. If you're not willing to do that work, don't come to me and don't waste my time. People want to come for a few marital tips and a few tools. And I'm like, dude, it's way, way, way bigger than that. If you're a resident, you don't need carpet and paint. We need to rip out walls and rip out plumbing and rip out electrical and build half the house all over again. So this kind of work is not for the faint of heart. I call it walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And if you get run over by enough trucks, you're going to come to these sessions weeping. And if you're a man, you're probably going to feel bad for weeping, but don't. If you're a man or a woman and you're weeping, all that is a sign of great strength. The next quality that you need to have, I need to give me a throat lozenge. My throat hurts. Is you have to have the ability to trust the process of therapy. Some people are so trust damaged, they couldn't trust their own mother, they couldn't trust their own father, and they've arranged for themselves to be abused and abandoned in every relationship they've ever had, including work relationships. So they come to you and they're like, what's your angle? How are you gonna use me? You know, are you the Unabomber of psychotherapy? I had one lady come in many years ago, and I had this white, pink and blue couch. It was sort of pretty actually, and she was maybe a slightly bit psychotic, but she explained to me that she could not trust me in the process of therapy because I had a dirty couch. And I said, really? Bring me out here and show me this dirty couch. I went out in the waiting room, and it wasn't dirty. It was just a light colored couch that had blue and pink coloring to it. But sure enough, she could not trust me because she didn't feel safe, because that triggered something inside of her. Number 7, you need to be a trustworthy person. The Imago therapists say, if you're going to do the work, quit talking about divorce. Quit talking about the slip out the back, Jack. Drop off the key, Lee. There's 50 ways to leave your lover. Be trustworthy, commit to the work, and commit to the marriage. It also means doing a lot of homework. Couples that rewire their personalities from the ground up, which is what recovery is. If they're working with me in a 2-year period, they probably read about 20 books and watch even more videos. So you have to follow through. I've had clients who were broken, who were motivated, who were teachable, who had pain, but they were flaky. And effective therapy individually or as a couple, you can't be no flake. Number 8 is you really have to find yourself a genuinely great therapist. My lovely wife and I, my lovely bride and I have been struggling with some issues of late. So, and we've been seeing a counselor, and she's a lovely person, and she tries to help, but she's more of a Christian marriage counselor, but we use insurance with her. And things were getting worse, so we went to the best Imago therapist in town, Dr. Baca, and he's a quirky fellow, but he's a damn good therapist, and he got both of us to quit pointing our fingers at the other person, and he got us to focus on the wounds of our childhood. So here's, in case you want to know, here's 12 characteristics of a great therapist. And these concepts, I call them the 12 C's of being a great therapist. It's actually taken from the movie The King's Speech, where Bertie, the speech therapist, and the king developed this therapeutic relationship, not for psychological therapy, but for speech therapy. So a great therapist is extremely confident. I had a guy contact me yesterday, and he was really wallowing in shame and wallowing in a lot of just beating himself up and wallowing in a lot of hopelessness. And I basically told him, I can help you, and what you're going to learn is going to completely change your life. And when I go in and see him this afternoon, I'm going to walk with a lot of swagger, because I'm really good at what I do. And I know for a fact I'll be the best therapist he's ever seen, and I'm going to rock his world, and probably it will result in saving his marriage. So great therapists know who they are. They know the extent of their healing powers, given a teachable client. If I don't got a teachable client, I can't do a thing with them. When the future Queen of England showed up at Lionel the speech therapist, his dodgy little office, to scout out his talents, he humbly informed her that he could, without a doubt, heal her husband's speech defects. He said, I can heal his speech defect. And this rang true to her. Lionel, the speech therapist, believed in his gift, and a great therapist of it's not arrogance if you can back it up. He had seen it work many times. He had been through war, and he had defeated speech problems even on from ravages of the battlefield. So you want a humble, extremely confident therapist. You don't want somebody with a shaky voice who's new at therapy and doesn't have a clue what they're doing. A great therapist is clear. They have solid boundaries. They have their protocol, their ways of healing, and those ways are non-negotiable. People want to come in and they want to skip the family tree, and I'm like, we ain't skipping the family tree. We're gonna collect the family tree, and if you resist the process, it might take 5 weeks, but I'm gonna learn everything I can about your parents, your grandparents, your children, your friends, your pets, your jobs, your past relationships, your addictions. And don't be sending me no 50-page email to save time and save money. We're going to do it in the session on my terms. Lionel was not awed by the prospects of working with the king. If he had to, he'd pass up the opportunity to work with the king. If the king wouldn't come to his place, he wasn't going to come to the king. And there ain't going to be no smoking. I don't care if you're the King of England, you ain't going to smoke in my office. And we're going to use first names. For a client to be helped, they first have to respect the therapist. And no one can respect somebody who's wishy-washy and doesn't respect themselves enough to set down rules from the very first contact. Number 3, number 4, number 5, a great therapist needs to be creative, they need to be clever, and they sort of need to be cute. I don't mean they need to be physically cute. I believe that would disqualify me altogether. Lionel kept Bertie, the king, Bertie he called him, off balance from the very beginning of their relationship. He used wry humor, unorthodox techniques, and a refreshing, playful demeanor to engage the king. And he would bet him a couple shillings that he could, get him to read something without stuttering. So he engaged a very resistant client in the work. So playful banter and sort of chess games need to be played at times to penetrate the stubborn psychological defense mechanisms. So it might as well be fun. People know me. When we had our old office, there were 10 offices, and some of them are really further away than others. But you could hear me laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. Hoo, 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 hoo. Because therapy's fun, because people are funny. At times it takes the spirit of a child to reach the child deeply buried in the core of some wounded people. The speech therapist Lionel joyfully played cat and mouse with this hurting but nearly unworkable new client, and trust was earned. It wasn't handed out to anybody, that's for sure. To engage a resistant, untrusting soul in vulnerable and painful dance of therapy, a skillful therapist needs to bait the line with interesting, shiny objects that catch the client's attention. Lionel knew his stuff, and he knew how to play the game in a way that would enliven Bertie. If you haven't watched this movie, The King's Speech, it's delightful. You'll enjoy watching the process of how Lionel, the wise old owl, used all his guile and cunning that he could master to reach his client, Bertie. Number 6, a great therapist cares a great deal for his or her clients. Lionel seemed like a kind and loving father with Bertie, even though there probably weren't too many years that separated the two men. His eyes quite literally shone with sincere empathy and grace, and this was not lost on his client. The therapy books call this unconditional positive regard. Being a great therapist is like being a great parent. It starts with offering unconditional positive regard. Number 7, a great therapist is childhood focused. People come in to me and they tell me they've been to therapy, and I said, did you work on your family of origin? They said, no, we just worked on the here and now. No, I'm not. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. You didn't do no therapy. Now, rich veins of therapeutic value can be focused on the here and now, as I've learned from my hero Irv Yalom. But the root, the cause, the foundation of effective therapy is healing the wounds of your childhood. I tell couples when they come in, y'all don't have a marriage problem, y'all have childhood problems. Lionel seemed, where were we at? From the first few minutes of therapy, Lionel was trying to get deeper than just tools and techniques. He asked Bertie what his earliest childhood memory was. And he knew that the stuttering problem had its roots in Bertie's childhood wounds and the abuse of his father. Since Bertie was a high and mighty, buttoned-up Englishman who didn't talk about his issues, he certainly had no intention of sharing such private information with this very odd stranger, and probably couldn't. He thought the stranger couldn't heal him anyway. It's all about your childhood. It's all about your childhood. Your marriage isn't about your marriage. You know what your marriage is about? It's about your childhood. that your marital issues are rooted in your childhood. Your marriage is a reenactment of your most painful childhood wounds. Your spouse is a reincarnation of the people who hurt you the most. A great therapist isn't about fixing the here and now, even if clients beg. I've had people come in, give me some tools, give me some tips. I'm like, shut up. You ain't getting no tools, you ain't getting no tips. How about if we fix you? How about if you face off with who you are and how dysfunctional you are? Healing the deepest wounds can actually change who you are as a person, which is the goal. It isn't about trying harder or being good. It's about having the gift of healing our most important and primal emotional wounds. A great therapist is confidential. They don't need to impress others with the prestigious names of your clients. I've worked with a lot of prestigious people, but I won't tell you who they are. Lionel has never told, he didn't even tell his wife that his challenging client was none other than the King of England. It'd be like if President Trump came to see me, which, dear God, he certainly needs to see a therapist. He walked in, I think I'd count him as the untreatable. It'd be like me coming home and not mentioning to my wife, I got this new client. I probably would tell my wife, but he didn't. He hadn't bragged to his kids about his relationship with the king. He always put the king's privacy and best interests in front of his own needs for self-esteem or importance. Number 9, a great therapist is sometimes pretty confounded. Therapy can be hurtful for both the therapist and the client. When clients get defensive and angry and reactive, a therapist can certainly feel some pain as a result. When clients abruptly drop out of therapy, as Bertie did on several occasions, it hurt Lionel a great deal. He cared about his famous word, and sudden, cruel rejections cut like a knife. They were on some levels friends. When Bertie exploded at Lionel on their walk, the therapist had his head handed to him. That hurt deeply. Therapy is a very strange business. It really isn't friendship, but eventually sometimes friendships can and do develop only at an appropriate time, only in an appropriate way. Many times people invite me to a ball game or want some kind of out of the office contact, and I avoid that. Not because I wouldn't enjoy it, but because I don't want it to get in the way of their therapy. Trust cuts both ways. A therapist who only sees his clients as purely a business manner, it's too much about business. He or she doesn't come from the heart enough, and they really aren't great therapists. A great therapist is very contrite when they make mistakes, and every great therapist makes mistakes. They're capable of recognizing when they are wrong, when they are projecting, when they've misinterpreted something, and they're able to humbly apologize. Lionel showed up at the King's Palace literally with hat and umbrella in hand, and he was sent packing. Therapy is often enriched by the foibles and the weaknesses of the therapist. That doesn't make them a bad therapist as long as they see it and own it and work on it. Therapists are just human beings. We're all quite flawed. Since most often their parents could never humbly admit fault or apologize, or for that matter their spouse, clients are touched and astonished when their therapist unashamedly apologizes. Lionel had a humble heart, and his reaching out to Bertie no doubt started the thawing out, healing of their broken relationship. Number 11, a great therapist is almost clairvoyant. I'm not as clairvoyant in my personal life. I wouldn't for many years know a narcissist if it came up and bit me on the nose. I know them now. But a good therapist can at times predict your future unerringly. When it comes to marriage and family systems, I tell people what's going to happen, and they come back and said, yeah, you told me that was going to happen. Lionel knew that Bertie had greatness in him. He knew that he was going to become a great and a courageous king during the war against Hitler. He believed in Bertie long before Bertie believed in himself. Sometimes it takes someone else envisioning your bright future before you can grow into that notion yourself. This works in reverse as well, unfortunately. I can usually spot a doomed marriage in just a few minutes. And certain characteristics mitigate against personal and marital growth. People who are defensive, people who have victim mentality, people who are highly reactive, people who have a high sense of entitlement, and people have abandonment issues leading to contempt rank high on the list and pretty well doom your future. A great therapist unearths destructive weeds such as these. Where'd my picture go? There you are. A great therapist unearths destructive weeds such as these and seeks to uproot them immediately. Lionel saw the potential of a great king and someone who would have an inspiring voice in the poor, broken, beaten, voiceless Bertie. This naming out of his future great things became true, and it's one of the great things of being a really good therapist. A great therapist is most certainly consistently courageous. It takes a lot of courage and moral fortitude and balls to be a good therapist, whether you're a man or a woman. I believe this is one characteristic that holds most therapists back from being more than life-changing. In movies and on television, therapists are usually depicted as beard-stroking, question-asking little sissy boys, pacifists who sit back and let you're supposed to figure out your own stuff. That's so stupid. If you could figure out your own stuff, you wouldn't need a therapist. A great therapist has a confidence, inspiring voice of a prophet. He's Charlton Heston as he played Moses in the Ten Commandments. They know of which they speak, so they speak with a quiet yet booming assurance. Lionel gave Bertie a swift kick in his Royal Highness's back parts, and he pushed him to greatness. He was not intimidated. He told Bertie the truth. Great therapy is always about getting the client to choke down as much truth about themselves as they possibly can. An edgy, truth-telling therapist who can put his or her fingers on your blind spots and then get you to see it. They're worth their weight in gold and diamonds, I'm telling you. I tell people I can use a scalpel to cut on your defenses, or I can go out and back and get the jackhammer, but one thing's for sure. You're either going to learn something or I'm going to chase you out the building. And I really don't care which it is. I prefer to not chase most of my clients out the building because it'd probably be bad for business. But what I found is that if I courageously just tell the truth, people don't run out of the building. Most of them, they say, "Thank you, sir, I'll take another." And there's a verse in the Bible that says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend." So you need a great therapist. Where was I at here? Number 9, it takes time. really your recovery process takes a lifetime. It's not something that you are fixed and you're done and that's that. It's not how it works. It's a lifetime of work. You don't have to be in therapy for a lifetime, but it took you your whole life when you were wet cement as a little kid to get healthy, to get unhealthy, to get broken, and it will take you the rest of your life working on your recovery. What's recovery? Knowing the truth about yourself and working on it effectively. Doesn't have anything to do with alcohol or drugs or 12-step meetings. It has to do with what's the truth about you. Are you defensive? Are you workaholic? Are you commitment phobic? Are you a sexual addict? Are you an alcoholic? Do you have a lot of internal shame? Do you have abandonment issues? What's the truth about you? We got to figure that out. And you spend the rest of your life meditating, going to 12-step groups, reading books, watching videos, dropping in and out of therapy, doing whatever you got to do to get better. The last thing, number 10, you need to build a healthier relationship is to have realistic expectations. If you think that you're going to have a relationship that is filled with bliss and you never fight, you're crazy. About the best you can do if you grew up in a normal family, and a normal family is really dysfunctional, about the best you can hope for is a workable relationship where there's more sunshine than thunderclouds, where both people generally listen, where conflict is resolved, and it's fulfilling, it's workable. That's pretty good. That's about as good as it gets. So there you have it. 10 foundations for building a healthy relationship. Original strong chemistry, emotional brokenness, high motivation, being teachable in your heart and mind, being able to brace your emotional pain, being able to trust the process, being trustworthy and doing your homework, reading books, and being able to be committed to the marriage, hiring a great therapist. We have great therapists at Family Tree Counseling Associates. Committing a lifetime to the process of your recovery and at least 2 years to your marital therapy, and having realistic expectations. If both people have the ability to do the work, then healing your marriage and building into something better than it's ever been is pretty much a slam dunk. Thank you for watching today. Join our YouTube channel. Join us on Tuesday night, every other Tuesday night, 8 o'clock for our live stream show with Renda, my wife Renda Smith, myself, and Jerry Wise, the family systems expert and my long-term friend. And also visit our website, familytreecounseling.com. I have a great book on abandonment issues, and I have a great book on healing shame, and I've got a great book on affair recovery, and I've got a book on marital issues, and I've got a book on male counterdependency. Well, I'll probably go back to bed here in a little bit, but enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for watching, and God bless.